Yesterday and today we heard most of the Pakistan versions and also some reactions from different countries, of course. But now I think time to narrow down the topics of discussion, and I would like to share some of my views about the Gandhara tourism promotion and some dimension, maybe three areas I would like to touch from a client's perspective, that is specifically from Nepalese pilgrimage point of view. Because there are three areas I would like to touch upon. Suppose we are thinking that Nepalese pilgrimage want to come to Gandhara for their experience. What they would seek is besides all the scholarly and lot of articulations, they would like to get emotional experience, because we are talking about pilgrimage. Some of I think earlier there were presentations of categories of tourists, but I think the mostly we are talking about now is the emotional experience or pilgrimage. I have read many times, this is Fayan and Wenshan records of this. And then it talks something about 30% of the descriptions are on their way, on their route, because they came from China and through Gandhara and then they entered into India and many other things. So what I see, I mean, some of the emotional things that would touch them is the descriptions, their descriptions about the stupas and the sangharamas. So for example, in Thailand, we come to read that there are 500 sangharamas belong to Little Vehicle. I mean, just giving an example, that is 400 AD's time. And then we see that the descriptions that Buddha also had come and visited this area. Now, historically, there may be some, but that is what we read. And then we see that somewhere there is a stupa and the Sangharama, the monastery, where Buddha's footprint is impressed. And some other, we see that Buddha's robe was dried on a rock. So, and then there is a stupa and then the Sangharama. So these are the Buddha's life, and then these are very emotional. So all the Buddhists would like to go there, because Buddha, just before his passing away, parinirvana, he told the monks that after I have gone, the Buddhists, the followers will come to visit the birthplace, the place where he got enlightened, then the place where he taught first time, and then the place where he passed away. There are four holy pilgrimage sites. But later on, we see that the Buddhists would like to see and visit and get experience in most of the places where Buddha's things are there. So we see that there is a rock where Buddha's robe was dried. When we see this is happening in this corridor, in this Gandhara area. And also we see that there is a place where Buddha's shadow was printed. And then it's an interesting description. Buddha, somewhere it is said that Buddha spoke, this is the place where in a former birth I got my flesh to ransom a dog. Because an eagle and dog was there. So to the eagle, he gave his flesh to save a dog. So, and then a stupa is built there. Similarly, Dharmavardhana, son of Ashoka, in his time, Buddha as a bodhisattva gave his eyes in the charity for the sake of a man. A great stupa is raised, and then little vehicle sanghas there. Country of Takshashila, it says in Chinese language, it is the donation of his head in his past life. Takshashila, I don't know. This is Chinese language, that is what explained. When that is Buddha when Bodhisattva gave his head, and also 2 days eastward, he gave his body to feed a starving tigress. And stupa is built on that side. So, like that, there are a lot of description, and these places, the Buddhist place would like to go there and experience emotionally what had happened. So I'm just giving an example. There are a lot of descriptions of this. So this is the emotional part of it. So when you are working on the tourism packages of this area, so these are very sensitive areas. If you could make it, that would be your life fulfilled. Because once in a life they come here, and then they would like to feel what Buddha's things are. And it is described in Fayan and many others also. Fayan and some of the other names. Now, second aspect I want to make observation is that if Nepalese pilgrims want to come here, then it has to be financially affordable. Presently, during this trip, 4 of us from Nepal came, and it's very expensive because from Kathmandu we flew to Dubai, and from Dubai we came back to Islamabad. Earlier there were air flights from Kathmandu to Karachi, I suppose Islamabad also, which is about a 1.5 hour flight. But it took us 2 days to arrive there. So at present, if this is the pattern of transportation, then Nepalese people will have very difficulties financially and also the time allocation. What I see, the trend of Nepalese pilgrims going to Sri Lanka, going to Thailand, Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, of course India is exception, and India is easy, or Japan or China. My observation, my guesswork is that they can afford like middle and upper middle class people. They are the ones who would be the targeted people who would be interested from the Buddhist. $1,500 to $2,000 they can afford, like 7-8 days. So this is just a very rough ideas. And then so if we could package, and then the biggest barrier is if we could revitalize the direct flight from Kathmandu to Islamabad or some destination, then this should be feasible. Of course, there are many other things behind it. Why it is maybe the PIA was flying that time, and then it is not feasible at present financially, because they would go in loss. Similarly, Nepalese airline would come, but they would go in loss because the volume of pilgrimage would be not that many. But still, if Nepalese people want to come to Gandhara, my guess is that there are hundreds of monasteries in dynamic, I mean the living monasteries in Kathmandu, and then the members of that monastery led by a monk or a lama or Bhante. And presently also there are like 20 monasteries where 20 young monks, they take their members to Sri Lanka every year, once or twice a year, something like 50 persons in average. So if they could be diverted, this is definitely a very attractive destination, besides if the structurally it is feasible financially. Then I would guess that 20 Theravada monasteries, and then maybe the lamas, the Mahayana monasteries 20, so and then the traditional monasteries 10. So 50 monasteries could organize. This is a little bit probability I'm talking about. So each group would organize a 50 persons. Then you can estimate the per year at this stage that could increase, of course, later on once the things are. Then, so this would be the financial feasibility. I'm just giving an idea from a client's point of view. So how you could use this information, or even you need to do a little bit of reality testing in the ground. And as far as reality ground is concerned, I think Mr. Om Charan Amadya from yesterday. He is our tour leader, team leader now. He has written a book on Gandhara Buddhism. And then we have been using that book as a promotion tool. And then we have been organizing the different monasteries representatives and even the youth Buddhists. We have done many promotional with the help of the Embassy of Pakistan. And then there are more demands. So we are using his book, and also he is now helping on this. And then, so we are already promoting the tourism proposal in Nepal. Now, just a little bit of romantic third point I would like to take to attract your attention is that when we read Bayan and Wenshan, another interesting, may not be interesting for all, because I belong to a Shakya family. That is, Lord Buddha was also born in that clan. And then now, where are they? Your relations, where are they? Of course, the history is that when Koshala attacked Kapilvastu, so we flew and we ran away. So one group landed in Kathmandu Valley, and that is the history of Nepal's civilization begins from here. The first urban settlement that took place in Kathmandu, and presently we have something like 500 still monasteries, living monasteries where we belong to. And then in India also, now I'm just going India, and we see that there is a sort of those who claim that they also are descendants from this clan. And my estimation is that something like a 1500 million population in India, something like 10 to 15% of the Indian population, they are claiming that we also belong to them. So this area I'm working on. So this is the future market, because in the beginning, during the Buddha's time, in the beginning of the Gandhara Buddhist civilization, 4 Sakya army generals fled from Kapilvastu and they came to this part. And then 4 states are mentioned: Uttiyana, Himatala, Bamiyan, and Shambi. And then they settled there and then developed. Because as those who went from Kapilvastu to Kathmandu, the history of Nepal starts from the urbanization, the statehood, and then the agriculture, urban art and culture. So I could imagine that could have also happened. So then this is a large population that we are now trying to organize. Of course, a little bit of socially, this is different dimension. But we are thinking that okay, they could feel dignified, thinking that, and then they could contribute to the promotion of Buddhism, but at the same time developing the traces of the Buddhist, the Sangha's footprints, and they could also be proud that, oh, this is where our ancestors have gone, so we should go and see that. This is also a little bit of emotional part, but more, more focused. I think these are the 3 things I would like to share. And then the biggest constraint is the connection from Kathmandu to Islamabad or something. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kishab.